So I've got some slides which I can now see. So welcome to the Health and Care Across the Life course theme meeting. For those of you that don't know, we also hold meetings in between the ARC Fests. So please do keep your eyes open for those meetings. We don't just meet twice a year, we meet about 6 times a year. Where's my... I did point out to my colleague, it's got in big letters, back and next. So, oh, I just turned it off. There we go. So, oh, glad to see Sean's actually got a photograph on it now, so that's great, thank you. Last time I saw this, it was blank. So we've got these 6 sub-themes, and because of who's available today, we're going to be running what we call World Cafe tables. So we'll rotate the people in the room, and if I can, virtually I'll rotate us the same group, but moving through ideas. We're going to have a families and children table. We're going to have an older adults table, and then we're going to have the other 4 sub-themes on one table, and that's partly because the amount of projects in those 2 sub-themes is greater at the moment. And we're going to be talking about what we can do that we're not doing now, but that has to be active. Today isn't about, wouldn't it be a good idea if, it's about, I would like to be involved in, or I would like to suggest that we do, and how can we do that? So I'm going to give a quick review of where we're up to in the theme. So altogether, last count, we had 106 projects registered, 78 of which had applied for external funding. This is really testing my eyesight. 33 of those have been funded. 10 of those 106 projects have now finished. 9 of them are PhD projects, and 8 of them are internships. That gives you an idea of the sort of work we're currently hosting within the theme. In terms of publications, we have, as you can see, a bumpy year in 2021. We won't quite hit those heady heights in 2022, but I don't think we're going to be far behind. We're still collating the figures on that, but I think it's going to be in the high 20s by the time we get to the end of the year, which is, I hope everybody agrees, is pretty impressive. Overall, since we started, we've been either directly or indirectly supporting, or directly being the applicants and grant holders of, or indirectly supporting the research of others, but actively in the ARC, not just writing a support letter, but being actively engaged in nearly £15 million worth of externally funded grants, which I think is quite impressive. And this is a quick slide of all the different organisations that we're working with or have been working with in our theme. So, as you've heard, we have things called research, I hope you have, we have things called research development networks, and they're the engines for driving ideas coming from within the core ARC themes. Usually they're cross-theme ideas. These are the ones that, those of you who remember when we first met at the launch of the ARC in November in Blackpool in 2019, at our first theme meeting, we came up with 3 key areas we wanted to look at. And these are those 3 areas, and they are now research development networks around social prescribing. It was around community mental health, which has now been expanded to think about, you can't look at mental health without looking at social cohesion and social interaction and loneliness and all of that. And we also recognized, for various reasons, that our coastal areas, which for various geographical reasons, to do with estuaries versus coastline, we call seaside in our area, seaside health and communities, and health and wellbeing communities and towns, and health inequalities within them. So those are our 3 research development networks that we host. I'm going to quickly talk about where we're up to with those. So there's the Seaside group there's a main group and there's two subsidiary action groups. The main group debated over a number of meetings about what are people doing, what interested in, where's the enthusiasm, and it got distilled into 4, and that eventually got distilled into 2 groups, one of which is the Beach Schools group, and Rhiannon is representing that today because Kate's unfortunately off sick. And the Beach Schools group is looking at how we can use the coastline as an educational amenity, both to do with school and to do with cross-generational activities. And it links with Morecambe Bay curriculum. It links hopefully with the Eden Project. We'll know by the end of this month. Apparently, I saw in the news a few days ago, the government, Rishi Sunak, is going to announce whether or not they're going to give the 50 million that they've been asked for to allow that to happen. I hope so, but seeing as I've only given 37 million to Northwest and local authorities, I think we might be disappointed. I certainly hope not, and I'm looking forward to me being proved wrong, and I hope I am. I'm not sure we know what the name of the other group is yet, because every time I come up with one, it gets frowned at. But it's too long, but it's about empowering communities in those seaside areas to be genuinely engaged in investment in their communities, whether it's redevelopment or the high street or public health initiatives, whatever it is, to say, how can we really knit them in from the beginning in a genuine high-level decision-making way, right the way through to the delivery of a project. So that's what that's about. And Equitable Place-Based Health and Care is now hosting that subgroup because it sits really well with them. They've been really successful in Blackpool and the Fylde in attracting external grants. So they've just got £5 million for the HDRC, which is a health determinants research collaboration. So that would be the local council working with communities in the Fylde about their health, their research interests, their development. It's £1 million a year for 5 years. It's a fantastic project. And Heather Brown, who can't be with us today, sends her apologies. She's the theme lead for Equitable Place-Based Health and Care. She's now principal investigator on that project in partnership with the council. So that's brilliant news. And that really does answer, you know, what are we doing around that topic? And the other one that's just been announced, which we're also linked into, is the Fylde Research Consortia. And I don't think our colleague who's involved in that is here today, but she's a lecturer in University of Liverpool, recently appointed in the DCLIN, but was working for Brighton University, who actually have been doing that partnership up in the Fylde for a number of years. And they have the Fylde Research Consortium. And as you can see here, that's about, again, working with community organizations, voluntary, faith, social enterprise sector, but also as a way into those communities, very much reflecting the sorts of work that EPIC looks after in the Corrans, the Community Research and Engagement Networks, which comes out of, as you remember, the work we did in Clark, Neighbourhoods for Learning. So all of that is happening within that space, which is great news. And I don't think I'm allowed to say it officially yet, so there may or may not be another reasonably sized grant, also from our infrastructures working together, that's going to be looking at about how we engage communities in research, part of which is going to be in Blackpool and Fylde, and part of which is going to be in Liverpool. So that's another, not officially announced, but we will watch this space. I chair the Social Prescribing Research Development Network, and just a bit of an update on that. We've got some publications in there. Catherine is here, and if you want to ask any about what's been going on, I think Catherine Aber, is she here? Is she downstairs? Oh, she's there. Right, you've taken your red top off. I was looking for red. So Catherine's here, and she's been doing a lot of that work with Nadia van Ginneken and others. So that's been moving along, and publications and reports are now being done, and some grants are now coming together as well. one around access for South Asian groups, which came from the Lancaster team, that's been submitted, about how they can increase their access to social prescribing initiatives. And then there's another project that's come out of a collaboration with Oxford and Plymouth and a PhD around inequalities, and some work, again, pulling together data across the Northwest Coast about who accesses these services and who doesn't. And that's now gone into a grant that's been developed. And then there's an equine intervention for people who are suffering particularly with mental health, but other health problems, as a sort of a social prescribing initiative that's been developed, I think within the Liverpool region or Liverpool City region, and a grant's just gone in for that. That's Liz Pears and Helen Mulholland, I think, from Liverpool. So again, lots of activity, not necessarily you'd be familiar with that, which is why I'm bringing it to our attention now. Please do come along to these meetings. These RDNs are open. There are designated public advisors, but it doesn't mean that other public advisors can't come. It just means that they won't be getting the payments for attending, but they're very welcome. And it's open to organizations who aren't directly part of the ARC as well, and individuals. So please do come along to those if you're interested. It's about driving that program of research forwards. And Rhiannon's here, so apologies, Rhiannon, if I wasn't sure whether you were coming, so I just thought I'd stick it on. And so there's a grant just gone in with Merseycare and University of Liverpool. It's called MRIC, and we're supposed to be hearing about that this week. My understanding is that it's going to be funded, but there might be some toing and froing about what's going to be funded within the bid. And that's linked to a biomedical research centre on mental health out of University of Oxford, as far as I know, and data. Is that right? Is that your understanding, Rhiannon? So the money's there. It's about which bits of it this project should be able to access. Eurovision, which is an evaluation of well-being. That's a bid that's gone in. Is that right? Great. So we've actually got funding for that. Great. So if you just didn't hear that online, so that project is linked to the Eurovision Song Contest, something I'm afraid I don't watch, but many others really enjoy it. I think I'd rather go to the dentist personally, without an anaesthetic. And there's a project to look at health and well-being related to that investment of the Eurovision. And as Rhiannon said, 500,000 so far. There may well be more budget coming into that work. And it's with particular focus on Ukrainian families, which after all is only fair, seeing as they won it last time. And if it wasn't for the war, Eurovision wouldn't be in Liverpool, it would be in Kiev, or Kyiv. So I think these are your publications, aren't they, Rhiannon? There's a Frontiers in Psychology chapter, and then there's some other work on an landmark piece in psychology and psychotherapy, something called around poverty, ACEs and stigmatized places. So again, publications coming out of that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit, and Catherine's slides. So just for time, really, not because I'm trying to gather all the glory. So part of the ARC national investment was the two priority areas for implementation. The Treasury wanted to see what actually, what difference was being made by this investment in this thing called Clarks and ARCs. How can you show me it's making a difference? Can you prove to me that you can get this sort of evidence into the real world and get it to make a difference to populations, to services? So NIHR kept a proportion of the funding back for ARCs for these national implementation networks. And I think there are 8 of them. And I'm going to talk about a couple of projects that we've applied to be part of. I'm on, sit on some of the national sort of executive boards, particularly for mental health, but also for behavior change and inequalities, etc. So we're delighted to say that we're one of the 2 successful sites for increasing access to psychological therapies, innovations in a school setting. So that's an amazing achievement, seeing I think we had 2.5 weeks to pull it together, or less. Yes, it felt like 2.5 hours, to be fair. Anyway, but that was because they've got such a fantastic project happening down in Cheshire and Wirral. It's really well developed. They've got a lot of evaluation happening already, so that's great. It's ourselves and Cambridge, I think, that are doing that, and that should happen over the next 12 to 18 months. And they're just forming collectively co-producing the formal evaluation of these 2 big intervention projects. So that's for 15 months. We just heard today that we didn't win this one, unfortunately, but there's some really interesting and exciting work happening in Liverpool around how we support people who've got severe alcohol addiction problems who are using lots of services in a fairly chaotic way. Unfortunately, we didn't get that funding. We'll get back some feedback, but it was good that we were invited to sort of got through round 1 to be invited to apply for round 2. So credit, because it's a relatively new intervention. So we need to see what we can do with that going forwards. And that's something to talk about, please, in Rhiannon's World Cafe table. If anyone says, oh, actually, we're doing that in our area, or we've got some interest in that, then we can start to build something based around this initiative so that we don't lose that momentum. And you've heard about de-stress, which is something I'm involved in as well. And I'm not going to bore you about that because we've already had a presentation on it. But again, another one of these implementation projects. And then there's one that we're leading. I don't know how Catherine, I think Catherine's cloned, because all of these things are Catherine. No, I know it's not just you, but we threw something into the mix at the social care and social work implementation theme, which is led out of Kent, Surrey, Sussex, who are part of the School of Social Care. And we just put a couple of ideas in, and I'm on that committee, and to my increasing horror, it kept rising higher and higher to the surface as they were sifting through what we should do and thinking, what was it we said we were going to do, and did we know? Anyway, we did, and we've done it, and thanks very much to Catherine. We are now, again, I think one of 2 projects, no, there are 4 projects in that theme, and Dorcas is going to talk about one of the other ones, which is around domestic violence shortly. And so that's one that we're running with the West Midlands, who have got an allied but not the same project under the same heading. So again, great work happening. And this builds actually from our Clark work and some of the, head's gone. Sorry, too many acronyms. Yes, I am, but I'm thinking about what we called them. We had 3 rounds of them and it's gone out of my head entirely. It doesn't matter. SIGs. Yes, the PPP, Partner Priority Programme. Thank you very much. I knew somebody would rescue me in the end. The Partner Priority Programme that we ran in Clark, remember we had 3 rounds. So 2 of those projects are sufficiently mature to be being looked at as implementation projects now. And that's around the care connectors and life rooms. And I think we've also got another project potentially coming on board from somewhere else, haven't we, into this? Yeah, case study in Kent, yeah. So a bit more about the cross-generational sub-theme, because Mari Lloyd-Williams couldn't be here. And again, that's Rhiannon's going to be hosting discussions around that. So Mari's given me this quick update slide on where she is, as the cross-generational sub-theme lead, is up to. So obviously there were links with the beach schools sub-theme in the Research Development Network and Seaside around the cross-generational element of using that amenity to bring generations together, to learn together, to have fun together, to communicate. There's a systematic review on the effectiveness of intergenerational activities for older people with long-term conditions alongside preschool age children, which always reminds me of that wonderful documentary around that innovation that they had, I think down Cambridge, or somewhere down south anyway, which was really well worth watching if you've never seen it, but looking at what the research says about that. There's an NIHR funded living and dying well for older people within the last year of life in rural and remote communities, and we're a co-applicant on that. And that's looking at how intergenerational activities can support people in their last year of life. Often now we talk about the first 1,000 days, and now we talk about the last 1,000 days. And this is about the last part of that last 1,000 days. But as Rhiannon says, and that's what today is about, we need people to buy into these programs and these ideas to be able to take them forward, because it's about collaboration. Kathy Montgomery was going to come today. I think she was online earlier, but it's her kids' nativity, and you know, you cannot miss your kids' nativity. That's well, you just can't. So they've been submitting papers on management of alcohol disorders in primary care, looking at pathways for the management of alcohol dependence. There's a qualitative study looking at how marginalized groups can access, can be identified and access care in primary care. Dr. Abby Rose was at Liverpool, is now at LJMU, I think, hasn't she? She's moved there. So she's got a couple of bids going in on because she's another specialist in drinking. If impact of drinking alcohol. She's not an expert in drinking herself. And looking at support for people who drink alcohol to excess, and also for mums who want to reduce their drinking. And as you can see, some more work on assertive outreach for marginalized groups. The practice I work in Brownlow, we've had projects on that for some time now. With Lynn Owens, the one we've just heard of, which unfortunately was unsuccessful. So quite a lot going in there. Please talk about that at the table. And these slides are not working. But this is for Dorcas, please, to come up to stage. And Dorcas is going to talk to us about, as I was saying, we've got some work around domestic violence from that Kent Sussex social care and social work theme. And Dorcas is representing us on the VISTA program.
Thanks, Matt. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dorcas Okeju, and I'm a public advisor as well as co-lead for health and care across life course. As Mark has said, my team is family and children. And Professor Jo Blair is sitting down there, so she's my partner on that team. As you know, really, intimate partner violence and abuse is the VISTA project. Domestic violence is also named as domestic abuse or family abuse. It's violence or other abuse in domestic setting, such as in marriage or cohabitation. It is a human rights issue, often committed by one of the intimate relationship against the other partner. We're all aware there are different types of domestic violence, and it takes multiple forms, including physical, verbal, and emotional, economic, religious, and reproductive, sexual abuse, or can be subtle or coercive forms to marital rape. Violent physical abuse such as choking, female genital mutilation, acid rain that could lead to disfigurement or death. Integrating social care in response to intimate partner violence was organized and is done by five acts, really, as Marcus mentioned. Northeast, North Cumbria, Northwest Coast, where we are today, South London, Kent, Sussex and Surrey, and West Midlands. This is quite good, really, because we're working with other ACT people. This is funded by NHIR anyway. It's a co-production priority program. And I like the word co-production because we have to collaborate together with the need to have a holistic family approach, not necessarily adults or children. You know, with domestic violence, sometimes we concentrate on the woman, or sometimes we don't concentrate on the children. But what we are looking at is the family unit, because when there is domestic violence, the family is affected. And if there's mental health, the family is affected. So that is what we're doing. It's identifying as well potential integration innovations locally. And they gave us a lot of good examples in the other areas, but we haven't got much example from Northwest Coast. So I'm hoping after today, some people, some members in the social care setting will find out some example, good innovation about domestic violence and using the IPVA setting. They have good case studies as well, and it's funded for 2 years. But what we've done so far is a systematic literature review. They had 172 papers were screened and only 31 papers were reviewed. So we got 17 that they're looking. The innovative practice mapping is quite good. They're looking at different places, what they're doing, and case studies, in-depth interviews of multi-agencies representatives. The co-production workshop is also there, and public and community involvement, and that's where I come in. And a couple of us are on it because they want to involve the public panel as well and practitioners. The report will be written when it's all done, and I'm particular about dissemination, implementation, and putting to good practice, because there's no point we do this thing and it sits in our universities or in our ARC. We need to put it into practice. And next slide, please, if you can come up. Oh, I've got it. Oh, yes. Oh, I haven't touched it, it's going back. There we are. Oh, you have said it. Sorry. This is interesting, really. Okay. It's funded for 2 years. I've mentioned that, and then I go forward. But this is the discussion point, really, because I felt that there's no point in me talking to you about domestic, you all know about it, but this is what we need in ACT Northwest. What is going on in your local area or in your social setting or healthcare setting? Do you know any innovative approach where different agencies are working together, like the Liverpool City Council and also other agencies, voluntary sectors as well? What are the areas for development? Which areas do you think we need to further focus in on domestic violence and abuse in a home? The abuse itself does not really affect just the woman, and we have to be sure of that it affects the whole family. And that's just what I want to tell you. So when you go back, please think about any innovation practice you go in which a whole family becomes a unit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Slides, because it just shows that I'll just make sure these stairs are pretty lethal at the best of times.
Okay. Doesn't really stand still, does it? Thank you.
Let's hope we can collaborate better than Microsoft can with other softwares. That's all I can say. Which is why it suddenly says OBE Co in the middle of that sentence. Dr. Giebels now, Clarissa Giebels is going to talk to us about dementia work, and then we really need to get into our table work.
Yes, I'll try and be quick.
Apologies if that was my fault.
What?
For us being late.
Never. Anyways, so I'll give you a really quick update on the old adult sub-theme. So we're quite busy, and as Mark was saying, Joe's theme is quite busy, and ours is heavily populated with projects. So just a really brief snapshot. There's much more that I could tell, but I also want to actually say, welcome Megan, who's hiding behind that pillar right now. She's one of our 2 new dementia postdocs who will be starting in January. looking at singing and dancing groups on dementia impacts for 2-year postdoc. So well done for joining the team. Some of our work that we're doing at the moment, we've just completed a project on finance management in dementia and inequalities in care spending, which I've presented on a couple of conferences about as well. And this has then led to follow-on work with the Alzheimer's Society. So we've just submitted findings from a national survey together with the Alzheimer's Society on how the cost of living crisis is impacting people with dementia's ability to access social care and support services in the community. And as you might gather, there's quite a few inequalities, particularly in relation to gender and ethnicity. So you'll find out much more about this once this is out. Another project which we're busy on is funded by the NIHR. It's looking at unmet mental health of paid and unpaid carers. We've currently recruited about 38 carers, and we're finishing recruitment end of this month. And then it's really down to analysing the data together with King's College London as well and Newcastle University. And related to that, we've also just been shortlisted for a large grant for the health service delivery research linked to Schwartz rounds and supporting unpaid carers for this. So hopefully we'll get it, but now we're at the shortlisting stage. 2 more things. We are currently together, well, we're funded by the Wellcome Trust to co-produce a board game, similar to kind of the board game that the ARC and the Clark has designed on health inequalities. But we take it a more specific angle on this, on health inequalities in dementia care. So again, we're working with the Alzheimer's Society together on this. And if you are a carer, a care provider, a charity provider working in the field, or a person living with dementia, we have a number of virtual and face-to-face consultation workshops to kind of co-produce this board game. And we know it's not fun to talk about dementia as a game, but for us, we see it as a more interactive way of engaging people and raising awareness about what are the barriers, how can we support people better with dementia. And lastly, because all of the work that we do is focused on inequalities, I've just launched together with Dr. Kerry Hanna from the University of Liverpool, a European-wide task force on inequalities in dementia care. So we're bringing together expertise, not just researchers, but also the European Working Group of people living with dementia and of carers of people with dementia to try and understand better and address the system, community and individual level barriers to inequalities in dementia care. So really ARC going much more international as well. And this is kind of the key brief slide that I'd also like to discuss at the tables with you. So we've been successfully awarded some funding from the Pandemic Institute last week. However, they've received a lot of funding calls and they decided they're going to allocate us a specific set of money. And we're now kind of asking for prioritization within the ARC to get the additional small funding to conduct public involvement, a few co-production workshops and transcribing. This is based on the study or studies that we conducted in 2020. So how has the pandemic impacted social care and mental health for people with dementia and unpaid carers? So we've just received follow-on funding to understand the long-term implications, also working and kind of building on the PhD that Thais is doing in terms of how have services adapted to providing remote care for people with dementia. So I'd really like to have a chat with you at the table as well about, can we prioritize this because it does fit within our research agenda. And lastly, because I have to mention this, our next public-facing webinar forum is taking place on the 25th of January. And we've got Dr. Dalia Tsimpida from the University of Liverpool and Dr. Aitni Heffernan from the University of Nottingham to talk about the link between hearing loss and dementia. So join us if you're interested. We've already got 50 people signed up for the webinar, and you can ask lots of questions there as well. And that's all from me. Thank you.
So looking at the time, Darren, we've got, okay. So 5 minutes each, rotating around 3 tables. So can we have children and families over there? Dementia over at the back on the right, and Brianna, do you want to just come down here maybe just because of noise levels, or wherever you want really, which would be adolescents, working age, marginalized groups. And yeah, you're staying over there for dementia. Yeah, you're going to split you up. So, so if you could just sort of, what will happen is at 5 minutes, I don't know, I'll try and do it online. There's lots of people online. So Darren, in 5 minutes, will make a noise. And then if you'll rotate round clockwise, and then you get a quick update of where people are up to and what your thoughts are about what's been said already. So the focus is, what are we doing already? What do you, as a person at that table, think you'd like to be involved in, either of what's happening already to take it further, or an idea that you'd like to be an active participant in? You don't have to lead it, but I'd really like, or my organization really would like to do X. Because I don't want, we can have a very abstract conversation about wouldn't it be good to, but we haven't got that long left in the arc, so it needs to be maybe a stage further. Wouldn't it be good to, and I'd like to be part of? You're doing adolescents, you're doing everything that isn't dementia or children and families.
Should we flush it on?
If hi, sorry about this. If colleagues feel that they can put their cameras on, that makes us feel a bit more human. And if you're able to do that, that would be great. So welcome. Essentially, what we're trying to do is just pull together your ideas. I've got a pen poised from what you've heard today. I think with so many people, if we try and do it every 5 minutes, that's not going to work. So either put something in the chat, or just raise your hand, or just shout out about your thoughts on the work we've been presenting and what you think we're not doing that we should be doing and that you've been interested in being part of, or how you might want to contribute to what we're doing. Don't be shy. Stephanie, you're on mute. We were supposed to present Stephanie's piece, weren't we? We'll present your piece before the end, Stephanie, don't worry. You've got a bit of work that you want to present as well, but what were you wanting to say? We still can't hear you for some reason, or at least I can't.
Why, do you know why you can't hear?
Can somebody else talk just to see if it's working? Pippa, you're there. Can you just talk and see if it's the system or the individual?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, Steph, it must be something to do with your connection.
Can you hear me now, Mark? Maybe.
I can hear you now, Steph, yeah.
Yeah, I'm having difficulty putting the chat as well, so I just thought I'd kind of speak up instead.
So we have a slide of yours, I think. Can you go and check with that we do have that slide. So we'll do that before we finish today in our
Yeah,
theme.
that's fine.
Anything else you wanted to say, or do you want to just introduce that?
As part of this group, do you want me to
Yeah,
introduce
if you
that?
want to, why not?
Yeah,
Plus
so
children
hi.
and families.
Yes, hi to everybody on the call in this particular group. My name's Steph Hayes. I'm the consultant midwife with the North West Ambulance Service. I did present probably a couple of weeks ago now at Mark's theme, just around some research ideas that we have within the ambulance service, focused on supporting access to midwifery services for Black and ethnic minority women and women living in areas of high deprivation. This is on the back of some audit work we did from our own data that highlighted that women from higher areas of deprivation and Black and ethnic minority women were more likely to contact 999 during and following pregnancy. So just highlighted a gap in terms of inequality in access to maternity services and how we could utilise that data to do some focus work. So I hope that helps summarise, Mark.
Yeah, and hopefully if we can, we'll get that slide up as part of the summary of today so that people can see that we've already prioritised that work. And then if there are colleagues here that want to take part, please do let us know, either stick it in the chat or contact us independently. So anybody else, any ideas that they're working with or they want to comment on what they've heard? Pippa,
Yes, as a
you want to
PhD
introduce
student.
yourself?
Sorry, yes, I'm Pippa Atkinson. I'm a health visitor by background, also paediatric nurse and general nurse as well. I'm currently a PhD student with the ARC, and I'll be hopefully finishing my PhD by August next year. I'm just trying to think about it. But I'm supposed getting to the point now where I've got some amazing data from my research and wanting to think about the next step. I have got some ideas, and I suppose it was just that opportunity to maybe present those ideas to the ARC at some point and to look at postdoc opportunities or to see what opportunities are available. I've got really clear ideas about what I want to do. So it was just really
Pippa, can we book you in for the next theme meeting?
That would be
to present your work.
That would be fantastic. I'm already starting to think about the next step, and I've got some clear ideas about what I want to do. So, no, that would be great.
It's around. So, what's the focus of your work?
So, my work is around the Baby Friendly Initiative standards, and it's about. I've been doing a narrative study to look at women's experiences from the antenatal period to the postnatal period. So I've been collecting their stories, and I've got some amazing stories which I'd really like to turn into plays that can be then used as a teaching tool for staff. I've already had some really positive feedback from my advisory group that they think that'd be an absolutely amazing idea. So I'm just trying to find some connections to turn my stories into plays. And then what I'd really like to do is get postdoc funding so I can evaluate.
What we need to do is connect you in with the English or literature academics, don't we, for a start, and maybe some local community or theatres or
I've
local
already
theatres. So
with Holding Time, it's she's an artist who's already done quite a lot of work around women's breastfeeding stories. I think I found out about her through the last theme meeting. I was put in touch with her, and we're hoping to see if we can look at obtaining some funding.
The place to put money, I'd have thought, to look for be the Arts and Humanities Research Council, AHRC, and go and look at their website and see if they have anything on health and art, and the other people might be Welcome.
Yes, I've thought.
Go and see if Welcome are interested in funding bringing together art and health in that very novel way. Great, thank you very much, Pippa, and congratulations. I remember I was at your interview, wasn't I? So
yeah.
Great. You were our first art PhD student. And you're going to be our first art PhD student who's finishing as well, from the sound of it. So well done.
It's been amazing, but I think because it's been so amazing, I don't want the journey to finish. So I'm
no, absolutely not.
Want to continue. So, but yes, if I can talk at the next one, that would be brilliant.
I'm just going to shout to the room. Can we do a quick rotation, please? Can all move round one? It might be quicker to move the facilitators than the presenters.
than the people sitting down? Right, so carrying on here. So the questions around big data. From Steph. So have you talked to Chai about that, Steph? The Care and Health Informatics team?
No, so I think probably
That's your next port of call, will be to talk to Ben in improving population health to see what he has already.
Okay.
And Sarah Rogers and her team in the Care and Health Informatics team to see what the potential is for the use of big data to look at children and maternity services. Okay, anybody else want to put anything in the chat or put their hand up or otherwise shout out? We're just doing a quick move round here. Oh, is that a hand I can see? Is that David? Or is that my... no, that's my hand, not your hand. I can't see people, so they're going to have to shout out. You're all very quiet. Oh. Someone share the emails for Sarah and Ben. If you just write to the standard emails, Steph, for ARC, then, well, I think Darren's writing it down, so he'll send them to you.
Oh, thank you.
arc@northwestcoast.live. ARC Northwest, ARC_NWC@liv.ac.uk. If you write to that, we will forward the emails onwards.
Thank you.
We're losing people. I can see I've gone from 3 pages to 2. Any of our other colleagues here want to talk about any of their work or any of their ideas? We've got PhD students, we've got academics and others. I recognize some names. It's fine if you don't, but just think this is your opportunity to contribute.
Hi, Mark, if I can.
Hi, Piotr.
Hi,
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm a Peter, I'm a PhD student who looks at the patient public involvement and engagement with the seldom heard communities. I mean, one of the things which when other people were speaking today, the coming projects around the patient public involvement, what is coming with me is potentially if there is some scope for me to support this in any way, that would be good because obviously my expertise is how to work with the public contributors, but quite often that can work with any projects. So, you know, when you said opportunities to collaborate, that's kind of, I see something for myself to step in and help out.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
what's
just
your particular...
yeah, sorry, Mark,
yeah. No, carry on.
No, you were going to ask the question.
No, the question was to what particular areas of expertise are you wanting to?
Well, I think the Daniela spoke about it. You want to do some involvement groups with the public contributors around their mental health or dementia. You know, that's kind of what fit within some of my previous work as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just an example.
Okay, thank you for that. Is that a hand up I can see? No, it's me. Anybody else? So all the discussion so far has been around children and families, pregnancy, childbirth. Not knowing what everybody does that's in the room. I don't know what other areas of interest colleagues have. So there was a question around, I posed a question about if anybody knew of any work that was happening in the space of people with chronic alcohol problems and memory loss and struggling to manage their health in a less chaotic way. Is anybody aware of any work that's happening in that space, or would like to suggest who else we might talk to? Okay, doesn't sound like it. So if there's nobody else wants to add anything, this not being a short round, I'm not going to sit with the silence forever. Do feel free. Is Claire, you wanted to say something? No. Claire, were you going to say something? You said you're connected to audio. Oh, Steph's got a hand up. Come on, Steph. Rescue me.
Mark. Yeah, I'm going to ask a daft question now, but I just think it's better to ask. So in regards to, for example, I've got an idea. I'm looking for somebody to work alongside. Would it be then, if somebody was interested within the art, you put together kind of a joint funding bid for like research for patient benefit grants, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. And we can use our web pages to pose anybody interested in.
Because there's calls out at the minute.
We can do that in our theme meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a call out at the minute for nursing and midwives for the focus of kind of those particular areas. So I'd like to put in a funding bid for the research for patient benefit, but I would like to work, I'd have to work alongside that with somebody as pretty kind of new to putting in research bids, if you will. So
well,
is
that's
this
what the research design service and we can help with, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well, grand, thank you.
So get in touch with us, and if anybody else on the call says, oh, actually, I'm interested in that too, then either drop us or Stephanie a line, because the whole point of this is about how we can bring people together that wouldn't otherwise know about each other to work collectively on bringing that investment into our region. So I can see from the room here that we're coming towards a close of this time. So I'm going to stop now and then bring you into the group chat when we get to it. Okay, thank you. Have you got? Can we just be wrapping up now, please?
Thanks for that. Sorry, we ran out of time, unfortunately. We only got through 2 of the 3 World Cafes. But you can't just carry on because we've got something else to do. So carry on afterwards. So Steph Hayes, who was on virtually, is a consultant midwife for the Northwest Ambulance Service. And she was at the last theme meeting. And we agreed to support her work, to prioritize it within the theme. And I've just got a couple of slides to present about this. So this is about putting together a project, and she's been talking about the fact that there's an RFPB call out specifically for nurses and midwives at the moment, about pre-hospital maternity care, because the work has shown that women from more deprived areas and women from ethnic minorities are more likely to have an unplanned delivery outside hospital. So this is about putting together a project to do with barriers, drivers and outcomes for women who access the ambulance service throughout the childbearing time. So they're more likely to have a baby in the back of an ambulance, and what we can do about that. So that's her project idea. It's prioritized. I'm sort of slightly stepping on Joe and Dorcas's theme, but we know that from the last theme meeting. Just to remind people, because Stephanie's just asked in the virtual group that we help her pull together a team and put a grant application in. So anyone who feels they want to contribute to that, please let us know, email us, email Steph, and we'll try and get that done in a timely way. Quick feedback from the tables. I wrote some notes down. So if just to start while you're thinking on your tables. So Steph was also wondering about big data. So if anyone's here from CHI or improving population health, Steph wants to know if we can use big data to help answer some of these questions about unplanned deliveries and the risk of that. Pippa Atkinson, who I think was the first PhD student we appointed in the ARC, she's going to present at our next theme about her work, because she's getting some really interesting data around inequalities in maternity care, and she wants to present those to us at the next theme meeting. So please do come along to that, find out what Pippa's been doing, and she wants to look at next stages, and that's really exciting because she thinks that the intervention to come from that will be short plays for community theatres to put on to provide people with an understanding of this area of inequalities in childbirth and care, as far as I'm aware. So we were talking about how we might pull together a group, and she's already got some links with some local theatres. So you're looking at me expectantly there, Anna, so I'll let you go. Give you a mic.
So our table was covering quite a lot of focuses. So we were talking about adolescence, the working age group, intergenerational, cross-generational activity, and also marginalized groups. And some of the ideas that we spoke about was the opportunity of setting up within ARC, or building up rather, a third sector or grassroots working group to capture the real value that is coming from those smaller sectors. Another thing we mentioned was prompted by Dorcas's presentation, was around the existence and the need to really look at, possibly through the Seldom Heard Voices group, male domestic violence, but also violence towards elderly, and even we were hearing in the news just this weekend around the increase in children being violent towards their parents. So this whole domestic violence thing is really changing quite a lot, I think, currently. So that seems like a useful focus. Trauma-informed approaches. So we've heard quite a bit about trauma and ACEs, I think, today, but we know that services are changing increasingly to become more trauma-informed, and that would be an interesting thing to look at. And then in terms of intergenerational, we were just very briefly mentioning the idea that Rob was saying has taken hold in Sweden, which is a sort of intergenerational twinning idea. So intergenerational connectors between schools and potentially older age homes, or people living isolated lives in the elderly. So those are the kind of things that we spoke about.
Thank you. Jo?
So I'm speaking on behalf of Dorcas, and some reflections that we made on the theme of domestic violence. And Dorcas, you must let me know if I'm missing stuff out. There were certainly some common themes, I think, running across the two groups. We talked a little bit about the whole spectrum of domestic violence, again, talking about child and parent abuse, abuse towards men, older people, etc. We talked a little bit about where are the opportunities, where do people have opportunities to make contact with services, and maybe some of the challenges about taking that first step to link up with a formal service, and where might there be some opportunities within day-to-day activities. And we're talking about some of the models that there'd been with barbers talking to their clients about mental health issues and signposting, and was there a role for, you know, looking to see where do people have ad hoc contact with people that might be able to do some signposting as well. And then we also talked about the complexity of understanding all the services which are currently available in the community, And how do you try and draw together, you know, an index of who's doing what where, and then trying to find out who's doing what well, and what would you replicate and what might you stop doing. So those were the main themes from our group. Dorcas, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So last but not least,
Yeah, just a
older adults.
really quick update. So we talked about two things specifically. One was the prioritization of the project I just presented, and I only had two small discussions though. So, but generally it was noted co-production is vital. So we can't do a project without public involvement in co-production. But also there was discussion about something works in one area, but maybe not in another. So there may be a comparison of services as part of the project. But we need to delve into that a little bit more. The second topic I wanted to raise a little bit was about implementation, because of all the research that is going on, where do we go next? But not just implementation, but also how do we bring it to decision makers to actually embed it in practice? And someone was saying, for example, we could use a social return on investment analysis or specific outcome measures to make it more tangible for decision makers. So, but yeah, we need much more time to discuss this, but first thoughts.
Great, thank you very much. So any final thoughts from anybody? So thank you. I hope somebody was, well, we've taken notes on the tables. Some great stuff come out of that.